That Game Company. A game company located in Santa Monica, California, were contracted by Sony to create 3 games for the PS3. These exclusive games would be known as Flow, which was released in 2006, Flower in 2009, and finally Journey in 2012. While all of these games are very interesting and deserve to be talked about, I want to mainly focus on their very last game. This is because Journey has gone on to being one of my favorite games ever made, and the game still impacts a large amount of my life to this day. I want to go in detail about how this game was made and the way its story, art style, and gameplay brings people together. So let us begin this journey. After the 2-year development of Flower, the developers of That Game Company started working on their 3rd game, Journey. The people in this company wanted this game to push the boundaries of video games. Genova Chen, the co-founder of That Game Company, wanted to make a multiplayer game that created an emotional connection with the players, unlike anything that has been made before. Early prototypes of the game had been made to test their thoughts. At first, the prototypes had you and another player working together in order to reach the end. It was a 2D platformer where each player had ropes that helped each other climb. One player was a fast-moving character who could jump high but was weak. The other player was a slow-moving character who could do small jumps but can break objects. This idea of gameplay was scrapped due to the players needing to rely on each other in order to progress. They wanted something that could be played on your own, but having someone with you could help you. Another 2D prototype was made, using a bird's eye view instead. This time, the players could freely roam around their own and assist each other if necessary. Their goal was to make their way to the end of the level while avoiding enemies by hiding in boxes. The game also added trails whenever a player walks, so that it makes it easier not to get lost. You could also communicate using beacon signals. It also supported 4-player co-op. Even though this was a step in the right direction, the 4-player co-op was cut due to some players feeling left out of the group. Chen still found this game to be too reliant on other players. Another prototype was then made. This time it was made in 3D and focused more on the cloth physics. From the start, the team wanted to make breakthroughs in real-time cloth physics.
We were just at this time implementing the cloth technology, and I wanted to figure out a way that we could have cloth in this landscape.
Another prototype was made, now only supporting 2 players instead of 4. This way made the 2 players feel more attached to each other on an emotional level. It also included sand physics as well. The player model has also changed significantly, appearing to have no arms. This is because in earlier prototypes, players still had arms that could interact with things. However, Chen didn't want people to be confused that players could use these arms to cause harm. While development was going on, the story wasn't exactly laid out yet. Chen wanted the game to be emotionally impactful, but could not figure out how to do that. At least that was until a group of playtesters encountered a bug at the end of the game. The game ended up freezing unexpectedly, but the playtesters thought the players on their screen died just before they made it to the end. This experience left them distraught, and it was this game test that inspired the ending of the game. Throughout the development, they would cut out pieces of the game that did not fit in or weren't exactly necessary. Chen called this the Japanese garden philosophy. He did not want any features that would distract the players from the main focus of the game. The team already had an idea of what they wanted their game to look like in the beginning. Their first game was centered around water, their second was grassy hills, and their final one was going to be desert-themed in order to separate itself in a distinct way. Concept artists had thought of several ways of how the player would look. This drawing of a girl with a scarf was the first idea that came to mind. Then a picture of a player in a desert was made in order to get a feeling of the world. Shortly after that, a concept trailer was made to pitch the game idea to Sony. It had a mysterious figure walking across a dune to reach a tall cliff. The trailer used music composed by Austin Wintory, and you may notice that this track is still used in the released version of the game. This is because the team immediately found it to be perfect for the game. You might also notice the player still has arms. This is because the game was still very young. At first, the artist wanted to make this really complex character that would show off the new cloth physics in a flashy manner. However, they soon realized that this was too difficult to recreate as a playable character.
I actually had this drawing and this character that I made. I was like, oh my god, what if we put like 100 arms on him? And they were just like, no.
So they began simplifying the character, which became a bit too simple, but this oversimplified character would inspire the cloth creatures seen in the game. The team then found a good, even ground on simple yet complex, and the cloaked armless person was their chosen player. While everything I've said from here sounds like the game has been going okay, that was anything but the case. You see, the longest developed game that game company made, Flower, took 2 years to develop. Journey had already passed 2 years by now, and did not show any time stopping. The atmosphere inside the studio was thick and tense. Many devs grew frustrated with their co-workers, accusing them for not working hard enough or working too much for their own well-being. The stress was immeasurable for the team, but as this became a much bigger issue, leaders began insisting on new communication methods that did in fact help the team get along better. However, even though they had solved some of the stress, there was still a looming issue that wasn't so easy to fix: money. Sony was growing impatient with Journey due to that game company having to delay their game by an extra year. Sony was also not happy about the abstract multiplayer system. They did not like that you had no idea who you were playing with throughout the game, nor could you invite your friends. However, Chen pleaded to Sony to trust their decisions, and partially, Sony did, except Sony's contract had ended a few months before development ended, which meant there was no way to pay the employees in the final moments. Many developers worked with no pay, but wanted to see their creation released. And during this madness, that game company went bankrupt. But despite the terrible working conditions, their entire budget used up, and being an entire year overdue to release a game contracted by Sony, the game was released on March 13th, 2012. Because of how messy this sounds, it may be reasonable to assume the game flopped and that game company ceased to exist. However, since I'm still talking about this game 11 years later, you can probably guess what happened next. This game is a masterpiece in many ways. It's so good I don't even know where to start with the actual game part. So I'm going to start off with the gameplay. Honestly, the gameplay of Journey is its weakest part of the game, but that doesn't mean it was anything bad. I quite like the gameplay because of how simplistic it is. You simply walk forward and the game will make you jump automatically. The most interesting parts of the gameplay would be the sliding and flying. Sliding mechanics had you slide over sand at a certain angle that would cause you to accelerate. The flying mechanics are a lot more in depth. Whenever you play Journey, you will come across these symbols that grant you a scarf. The more you find, the longer your scarf becomes. This scarf lets you fly, but has a finite amount of time before you need to recharge by interacting with companions, including the friend you have along. Speaking of friends, the multiplayer system in this game is amazing. It's so unique and interesting compared to any multiplayer game I've played in the past. You play with a complete stranger and you have no way of knowing who they are. There is no communication except for visual pinging. It may sound useless, but for me at least, it created a relationship with the people I played with. We would often ping at each other, encouraging us to push through even in our struggles. While not the main focus of the game, the gameplay of Journey is extremely unique and easy to learn. What I do believe was their main focus, however, was the story. A little note. The unique part about Journey's story is that there is not a single ounce of dialogue spoken throughout the game. It is a great example of the show don't tell technique in games/movies. Now with that out of the way, let's actually get into the story, shall we? Just a last minute warning, if you care about spoilers at all for this game, I would recommend that you stop watching this video and go and play Journey yourself. And then you can come back and watch this video. But, yeah, this is the final warning for spoilers for the story, and, we're going back to the video, now. We begin with an opening cutscene that introduces the barren landscape of this desolate world. The sun's rays battering on withered terrain and remnants of past civilization. When suddenly we catch a glimpse of a spotlight gliding through. The source of light becomes known as it enters our view and continues to fly across the dusty air. The music picks up in intensity and so does our view as it gains speed until it abruptly cuts to an unnamed traveler that rises to an unknown call. The first chapter is stylized around mystery and uncertainty, but it at least gives us a small implication of what our end goal is. Although the first vibes given off are in fact mysterious, this part of the game doesn't appear hostile, almost as if it's trying to introduce the player slowly, which is what it is trying to do. This is the introduction part of the game, and also acts as an abstract hub world. It introduces the core mechanics of the game in a steady and comfortable way. It shows us the scarf mechanics, the sliding, and the communication. With the core gameplay out of the way, it then shows us our first bit of lore to this world. We rest in a circle of light, and find ourselves standing before a massive cloaked figure who is turned away from us. Before the traveler has time to approach the mysterious person, the person sings out a vision to us, showing that the mountain hinted at the start somehow gave life to the world, sparkling the skies, creating living creatures, plants, people, and even the scarf material that we have seen before. We then awake from our vision and find that a gate in front of us has opened. We begin to make our way when the game introduces us to the multiplayer mechanics. The next part shows you how Journey can work. You see, despite being a multiplayer exclusive game, you can play the game entirely by yourself, if you really wanted to, but having a friend with you can make it easier for you. Throughout this playthrough, we never parted ways once, and even waited and encouraged each other to keep going. After solving the puzzle of this place, we make it up to yet another circle of light with a statue. These statues act as a checkpoint in a way, as you see them almost every time you progress to the end of an environment. Anyways, in this vision, we meet the white figure, who is now turned towards us and comes close to us. It looks eerily similar to our red traveler. It then shows us more of the world's lore. Its people are now beginning to use the scarf material as some sort of generator for power. The next phase of this game gives off a more playful and happy energy. Everything seems a bit clearer, you're getting the hang of things now, and you begin to think for a moment, this journey won't be so bad after all. You find some more companions that assist you navigating the terrain. You also start noticing a loud noise coming from somewhere. It doesn't make itself obvious until you look up to find more of those lights in the sky. The noise gets louder as they approach. Then one of them gets a bit too close and ends up slamming into a structure, leaving nothing but one of those white symbols that you would collect. This only raises more questions. As we traverse, we then stumble upon the first actually threatening place. The mood is ominous and the colors are dark and blurry. As we climb to the top of whatever this is, we then find another statue. Here we meet the white figure once again, and are shown more of its story. Its people began to use this newfound power as a way to create homes in a seemingly endless utopia. After the vision ends, a large group of companions are released and begin to carry you over walls as the screen fades to white. Drop down, we immediately start surfing across the sandy dunes, the sand behaving more like water than anything else. We race across the valleys and halls with the wind in our ears, the emotions coursing through us, thanks to the wonderful work of Austin Wintory, who composed all of the music of this game. Because of his songs, sequences like this leave a much bigger impact, and I think this part does a really good job of showing it. The scenery and lighting together with the music makes this scene the main reason why I wanted to make this video. This right here is why you should play Journey, because a video simply talking about it doesn't do it enough justice. As we get to the end, we make one last plunge before we fly off into the abyss below, ending the music off with an uncertain tone. The colors are now harsher and colder than it was before, leaving the two of us uncertain of what's to come. We rest at another statue, where we discover why things have suddenly taken a much darker tone. The figure reveals to us that as time went on, their seemingly endless utopia was in fact finite. The scarf material begins to dwindle away, becoming scarcer. The people begin to fight over the last remaining pieces. Everything devolves into all-out war for the scarves. And the people construct these massive creatures whom I haven't yet talked about. This is because I think the Guardians deserve their own sub-chapter. The Guardians were designed by the people to hunt for any scraps of cloth left, and even kill people and destroy structures. The way the game introduced these beasts is genius. The environment, at first, seems brimming with life and creatures that resemble sea life, like jellyfish or sea kelp, when suddenly, the life abruptly stops. and we dive into an area filled with mechanical groans. The room opens up, revealing a bunch of peculiar statues, some of which seem disassembled, and then we tread along past the statues. Except these statues are alive and hunt for life. Throughout this next part, we have to stealthily walk through these corridors, because if we don't, well... yeah. With our scarves cut apart, we race our way down a hill and into the searchlights of the beasts. Swerving toward our direction, they begin to pursue. They gain on us, and when all hope seems lost, a protecting light engulfs the guardians and scares them off. As the symbols dance around us, we visit the white figure again, revealing to us the aftermath of this war. Everyone in the world deceased. Nothing left to nurture. Decay begins to take hold of this landscape, although hope has not left quite yet. And as it was in the beginning, the stars shine brightly again. Finally, the light descends down, revealing us to be a reincarnation, with a purpose to right the wrongdoings of our ancestors. We enter a new place that gives off an almost holy atmosphere. Within the room is a central tower that rises to the ceiling, and on the outer walls of this chamber are rooms with pictures to reveal. I haven't mentioned it that much, but throughout the game you can find these areas that reveal smaller parts of lore. I didn't want to go over them because there are a lot of them, and it would make the video way longer than it needs to be. But these pictures are different. They don't reveal a story of the past, but they reveal you instead. Your story. Everything that you have done. What's cool is that these can change depending if you played with another person. This is in fact your story, your destiny. As we unlock our story, the chamber begins to fill with a golden aura, and the central tower becomes enlightened with symbols similar to what we have in the objects that we have found. With each part of our story revealed, the more life emerges, including the friendly version of the Guardian. We reach the top of the tower, and there we meet the white figure again. It then reveals to us our destiny. We were born for this purpose, to traverse the world and scale the mountain of life. However, the last section of our destiny teases our most grueling test yet. Exiting the chamber, we come across the most alien environment we have ever encountered. It's cold, harsh, and unforgiving. This is the most punishing part of the game, because the cold can freeze your traveler's scarf, making it practically unusable throughout this whole section. The cloth that resides in these parts are frozen in place, only to be loosened up if we get close to it. Hi, it's me going off script again. I didn't actually notice throughout making the script and also recording it and looking through the footage, but I just noticed that there was something really, really cool about the cloth in this part of the game. So I will be pointing it out to you, but I will not be mentioning it in the script. Just I'm putting this in here to let people know about my mistake. Sorry. The two of us huddle together, constantly pinging each other to keep us going. The wind starts pushing us back in choke points, so we have to rely on stone structures to shield ourselves. Fighting through the storm, we come across a cold cloth companion. We free it, giving us a momentary bliss. But this bliss is short-lived when we see another hostile guardian looming from above. Though it doesn't see us, the threat still remains. We then have a moment of comforting warmth to prepare us for what's to come. The Guardians are now a clear threat to us as they cross right through our path. We tried our best to avoid it, but it unpredictably turned towards us in the open air. It dives, just barely missing me, but unfortunately, it catches my friend. I hope you can notice the sheer panic in my movement. I have been through almost everything with this traveler, and so suddenly, I lose track of my friend. I could not go any further without my friend beside me. I scramble for his location until I see him in the distance and sigh with relief. We move on to the next section of danger, avoiding all of the enemies this time. We tread through a chasm, fly to a higher platform, and hike our way to a side balcony. We must push our way through without the wind pushing us off. We almost make it, but my friend unfortunately falls at the last second, and I follow with him, making a promise to myself to never abandon my friend. Thankfully, there was a platform that caught us and brought us back up to the doorway. In this here, I want to compliment the game a little bit more. The way the wind starts to push us around, tearing off whatever remains of our scarves, it really gives a sense of struggle to you that feels natural. Instead of having to mash a button or perform a QuickTime event, this game does something very different, and I love it. Fatigued, freezing, and weary. The wind finally calms down. We trek our way up and up, our light nearly invisible, and our life almost drained. Dragging ourselves a few more steps closer and closer, and Six white figures appear in front of the recently deceased body, the same number of statues that we encountered. They gaze upon the frozen corpse, and suddenly the light of our eyes flicker to life once more. The frost begins to melt off, and we rise up with a scarf longer than ever before growing behind us. We look up with power and determination, and launch ourselves with the brightness of a shooting star, soaring higher and higher, past the clouds and past the beasts, everything beside us. And we ascend above with peaceful enlightenment. Flying without a worry, we rejoin with our friend and fly together, traversing the oasis in front of us. Life beaming everywhere, we begin our final ascension. Golden light envelops us, and we land at the summit. We celebrate with each other, and then we start our final walk. Side by side, like how we always did it. And then we step into the light and end our journey. Journey is a story about life and reincarnation. From the mysterious, playful, and adventurous time of our youth, the trial and tribulations of our adulthood, into the unnerving peace of death, and the cycle that begins again for somebody new. Journey has been my favorite game from that game company, and researching their development has made me appreciate it even more. Because I think this game also symbolizes the struggle that game company faced. How naive they were in the beginning, the struggles and self-destruction they faced, but even when all seemed lost, they still prevailed and ascended higher than ever before. Even in those moments where they had no hope, they kept working, not because they knew they were going to succeed. And I might be overthinking this, but I like to believe that the team followed the same philosophy of this game, being that this was never about reaching the destination, but it was always about the journey. Thank you.